I am so excited today, and we're going to go live in the next moment. I don't think we're live right now. We're being streaming. Webinar is now streaming on Facebook. So pumped and excited. Grand final week, AFL, NRL, Brisbane's in both grand finals, and it's warming up. Days are better, stocks flying in. And we're going to have the benefit and the luxury of the number one real estate agent at McGrath for number of sales, volume of sales. I want to make it clear, this guy is the number one. When they do the awards, they do them by state, but I don't think anyone did more than him. He does over 200 sales a year. Amit, am I right about that? How many sales you do? 200?
Last year, Tom, was 151.
151. What's the highest you've ever done?
191, which 191. Was last year.
191. Also on screen, one of the founders of Before You Bid. So to me, there are two or three things in tech. Everything else in tech to me is bleeding edge. There are a few things that are cutting edge. And without a doubt, I can't get over it. Whether it's Amit, whether it's one of my other clients in, New South Wales or Victoria, David Walker, a long-term client who is the number one Ray White office in Australia, and I think Australasia for that. I think Australia and New Zealand, big fan of Before You Bid. The list goes on. You've got to be very, very proud, Reece, of knowing that you built a product that the best agents are using to get more listings and make more sales. And we're going to talk about it today because a lot of people think, oh, what is it? Oh, it's a pest and building report, right? But they haven't worked out the benefits it gives. You've got to be terribly proud, Reece, with what you've built there.
You get lucky as well. I'm proud, definitely, but you kind of build something, you talk to enough agents, you get feedback, and you make it better and better over the years. We've been doing it for 8 years, so 8 years has been overnight success. Definitely happy with how it's going. And Amit, and you had Matthew on last week, another kind of 200 sales agent who uses for every listing. So it does feel like the top agents are really understanding the power of the data.
Yeah, so from Richard Matthew Effingham, right?
Yeah.
Another great agent. I think you do know him, Amit, don't you? You know Matthew?
Absolutely. Yes, I know Matthew and Rich both. I've been to their office and met the absolutely gun team there as well.
Yeah. Well, Amit, firstly, I want to ask you, how's your life going?
Tom, life has been fantastic. Been pretty healthy, happy, from the family point of view, work point of view, been absolutely pumping up the sales, listings. So life's great.
Yeah, well, I've got to tell you, everyone, by the way, everyone watching in, just tuning in, Amit, up until, 7, 8 years ago, he was working at a restaurant there. Was it an Indian restaurant?
No, Tom. This was modern Australian cuisine. There was more kind of a cafe style food that I was cooking
in Parramatta, in that area there,
in the Olympic Park, Sydney
in Olympic Park. He gets into real estate. So you are a chef, right?
Yes,
a chef. Can I ask you, what pays better?
Oh, 100% real estate, without any doubt. But hey, look, as you said, many times, that I'm sure there will be many agents within our industry who pretty much even not making money as what some of the chefs make as well. So it's the highest paid easy work and lowest paid easy, I think something like that you say, Tom.
Highest paid hard work, lowest paid easy work, a big gap between the two. And today we're going to focus on what you're doing at the moment to help you, because it has been a challenging market. Volume for quite a period of time in certain markets has been quite low. And then you also have the issue where buyers have been becoming very, very picky and nervous. And of course, affordability has been an issue. Most buyers have had their borrowing capacity drop by 30% since May 2022. Amit, most of your properties you do are by auction?
I would say around 70 to 80%, Tom. Would be auction, and 70% of my market is the apartments, and most of them actually do sell by private treaty. but I actually sell by auction. I would say 70-80%.
And do you use before you bid? Do you use before you bid only for auction properties or for all properties?
All the properties. That's non-negotiable. That's each and every listing, either it's units, townhouses, houses, no matter what, we would get the strata report as well as building and pest, reports done on each and every listings.
I'm glad you said that, Amit, because when Tom started asking the question, I was like, oh, I actually don't know this, but about 60% of our orders are for private treaty listings, but it's a bit of a quirk while we're called before you bid. Before you bid was $19 for the domain name when we started 8 years ago, and before you buy was 18 grand, and I only had 60 grand for the business. So that's why we're before you bid.
Okay,
Yeah.
and it's important that we clear this up, because I actually think a couple of other times when I've been sitting there at a training seminar and I say to someone, oh, do you use before you bid? And they say, oh yeah, we're not an auction business. And I say, mate, but most of the people I know aren't auction businesses or part auction businesses, and they're using before you bid. Private treaty people, let's get it very clear, wherever you are in Australia, private people that do private treaty, right, are using before you bid. We're going to have this informal conversation, the three of us now, but I want to start off with you, Amit. Can I ask you, tell me how you use before you bid with your vendors. Explain the process. Like, do you go and sign up a listing? Explain it all.
So that's pretty much has been already built into our marketing package, Tom. And each and every marketing package does have that included in there, which is absolutely no brainer for us. With the vendors, I actually do use a lot of case studies, and case studies like where the buyer would have just inquired on a property on Thursday in the final week of the auction campaign, while the auction's on Saturday. They would have inquired on Thursday, inspected on Thursday or Friday, and then be like, hey, look, I don't think I could buy it because the auction's tomorrow or the day after. Why is that? Oh yeah, because I haven't got the contract reviewed, haven't got the building in pest, and we'll be like, hey, look, I've got the link right here. You could just pay, $69, and then you could literally download this inspection report. And many listings, I would say, where I would have literally sold property to a buyer who would have downloaded the report at the last minute. And vendors do get that. And I mean, if someone's selling, like my marketplace, the average price is, for the apartments around $550, for houses around that, $1 million, $1.1 million mark. And I look at it, it's just like absolutely no brainer, where either it's the private treaty method there, Tom, a lot of times chasing up some of the strata companies during that cooling off period, it's still a nightmare, where either the strata managers on holiday or just not responding, or either it's the auction process and not having those reports handy. It just actually drags on the process so much, or the cooling off period we have to keep extending. And I've done it myself in the previous company where I actually worked. I wasn't getting the reports, and I've sort of been through that, versus I've seen the difference now of having those reports handy, and then it just saves the vendors the time. For us, the days on market will be lower, and then bang, this all win-win situation for the buyer, seller, and the agent.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Reese, the conversations that you have with that loyal client base that you've got, what do they say to you are the biggest benefits? I want to talk about the benefits to the agent. I want to talk about the benefits to the buyer, right? Because there are significant benefits to the buyer, and I want to talk about the benefits to the vendor. Can I start off, Reese? What are some of the benefits that agents tell you before you bid has for them?
I'll go back to probably ARIC, where Amit was doing a talk, and I stupidly should have looked at the ARIC list, because on that Monday, it was Amit, it was Kieran Bresnahan, it was Cindy Cash, three of our great supporters. And I was like, I should have just slipped him a free report or something just to mention before you bid while they were up on stage. But I'd say, so 8 years ago when we launched, it wasn't really very common anywhere for reports to be done up front. It was probably Cunningham's group on the Northern Beaches and John McGrath. They were the two who just went, hey, customer service. Like, customer service was the big reason people started using our product. We've got buyers going through these open homes. They're spending $500 or $600 on a building and pest. Why do we have such a big bridge to buy the properties that we're selling? So it was definitely McGrath and Cunningham's were probably the two who pushed it early days, and around that customer service, around the kind of data piece as well. Then it did move from the customer service into the data piece. So Amit, you'll be able to tell me this better than I could, but from the agents I speak to, it's very much of, hey, I had 6 listings on, Saturday. I had 100 people go through. You sent me the 8 people who download the building and pest inspection report, and that's kind of 75% likely it's going to be my buyer. I'm just going to focus on them first. So, Amit, I assume that's kind of a similar thing for you.
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes I even have vendors there is where they'll be like, hey, look, I would just get the report and you could just simply provide to the buyers at no cost. Now, I did not see any benefit there. Why? Is because one thing which is absolutely game changer that you guys do is, straight after the open home, the text message goes out to all the buyers. And when they actually do download or purchase the report, that I do get notified by email saying that Tom has downloaded the report, and we have actually flagged Tom in Agent Box in your system as a warm or a hot buyer. Now that's absolutely game changing versus where the vendor really provide the report for free, and each and every buyer will be like, yep, send me the report. And you don't really see the differentiate between who's your hot, warm, or a cold buyer out there. So I think just for, that's just that massive point of difference that I see, that before you bid is absolutely been game changer personally for myself, team, and in fact for our entire group.
I might just show that, Tom, if you don't mind, while we're on it.
Please.
But can you guys see this?
Yes, we can. You're sharing the screen.
Okay, hold on one second. Just is it being a little bit funny? Give us one sec. Give us one sec while that loads properly. Is it? Can you see the more downloads means?
No, I can see 3. I can see 3 images on the left-hand side. The first one's a mobile phone, right? Now you've stopped sharing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna close this and reopen it. But yeah, definitely those names and I mean, just on your point there, probably 20% of our agent clients, a bit less actually, probably about 15% of our agent clients have it so the report is free for buyers, but it still has to be downloaded. And that's really important from an insurance perspective, why it's going to be downloaded away from you. But if I look at the 17 of the top 20 REB agents who use this across the country, not one of them has it free for buyers. Every single one of them, your Dave Walkers, etc., Phil Resnikovs, they want the buyer to pay something. Firstly, because they're covered for insurance, but secondly, it just does give that little bit of, okay, now I'm fully committed to this.
Yeah, a bit of a skin in the game from the buyers as well, and absolutely shows their commitment.
While you're bringing that up on screen, I had a DM the other day. I'm thinking about it now, but you're talking about it. I get a lot of consumers DM me wanting advice, and I had one that says, I want to go bid on a property for auction next week. I live in the street. I don't want them to know that I am 2 doors away from the home, as they might up the reserve price. My issue is I do need to now go off and ask for the copy of the contract. Is there a way I can do it? And then I replied back, you also need to go off and get, inspections done on the property. Oh, they said, oh no, they were able to provide that with before you bid. And then, then I then went in and had to explain to them, there's a very good chance that they know that you're going to be bidding anyway, right? So makes no difference about asking for the contract. But go on, it's opened up nice and clear now.
It's funny, Tom, you say that, because a lot of our agents say it used to be, oh, how's your campaign going? Oh, we got 6 contracts out. It's going great. But in certain cultures, it's polite to just say yes to the contract. Now it's, we've got 3 reports downloaded. It's going well. Yeah. But you can see here the email Amit was talking about. You get the name, you get the email address, phone number, postcode they live in, which is super important. I'll show you why in a minute. I'm actually going to be interested in your thoughts on this in a second when I go over to it. But then the role, so whether they're owner-occupiers, investors, buyers, agents, or conveyancers, and whether they're first home buyer or not. So yeah, you can imagine, Tom, when you start getting these emails coming through on your Saturday, it just helps you refine, who you're going to call first. And, maybe the ones you're going to, I don't know if I should mention his name, but he sells about 205 properties up in Brisbane. and I think he's a part of your gym as well, Tom, actually. But he told me the other day that he doesn't actually call anyone unless he gets an email from us. So after an open, he'll go, cool, 20 people went through. Here's the 4 who download the report. I'm not going to call the other 16. They can call me and make an offer and email me and put an offer in. But I don't have time to call a bunch of tire kickers about whether they're going to buy a property or not. So
Reece, there's an increasing number of agents that have worked out, don't call them, let them call you, right? On the Monday morning, they do their callbacks, but what they'll do is that they will actually wait in the morning to see who comes out. Because we know the power always lies with the person that has the person coming to them. It doesn't matter what there is in life, right? Yeah. So they do that, but they still do their callbacks, but they don't do them first thing on Monday to see who sort of actually identifies themselves as an interested party.
Well, and this is one of those key metrics. It just gives you a bit of an idea. This is a property in Double Bay. It's probably very small writing there, but it was downloaded 25 times. This report, it's a popular one in that area. But I'd say, Amit, as I said, I'd be interested in what you say. Mm-hmm. What we say, good agents will go, cool, that's 25 buys. I sell to one of them. I've got 24 to carry through to my next similar property of that kind of nature. What we're finding, some agents come back to us, Tom, is they go, okay, well, of these 25, on average, we track this through CoreLogic, 30% of them have something to sell. So you've got these ones on this particular listing where it's like, okay, well, if I can find them something to buy, I'm going to have a listing on my hands. Do you do that, Amit, with the ones we push through?
Absolutely. With the houses, definitely we do, because obviously it does mention what postcode. I mean, I pretty much do ask them the question, but when the before you bid email comes through, be like, okay, they actually live in my core market and already own a property and looking at upsizing. So those ones obviously are the Saturday afternoon phone calls, you know, and we do exactly the same thing, what you mentioned there, Reece, as well, about the agent in Queensland that, you know, if they were to download a report, the text message goes out pretty much a couple of after the inspection, be like, hey, look, we have got an offer come in, just to create a bit of an urgency. And most of the time we would, you know, secure their bar on Saturday evening itself.
Yeah. On that agent I'm speaking with, and Amit, you said 150, 190 properties a year. So, you know, you can kind of probably understand this from the incremental improvements you need to make a big change to your business. But this one in particular, he sold 190 properties the year before using us. He sold 205 the year after. Now, he did say to us, look, you don't change my business by 50%. But you certainly change it by 5 to 10% because I'm just not wasting as much time with people as I used to. And so he was like, look, if I'm a 40 listing agent or I'm a 20 listing agent or a 50 listing agent, just trying to get to 55 or 40, trying to get to 44, this would be the easiest tool to use to do that because I can just focus on these people downloading reports and see if they have something to sell.
So, that's exactly right.
Amit, would it be fair to say that, you want to stop sharing for a moment because it'll bring us all back looking at each other. Do you need to show anything else on that slide?
I had a couple other things, but we can
go back to it. We'll go back to it. But what I was going to say is the buyer seller now has become a critical person in a chase list, but it's more relevant. Like you actually made reference to, if it's a unit, often they're first home buyers, right? So they don't have an existing property. But if it's the step up, a house, or if you're working in an area, example, David Walker, Ray White, Warunga, or any of those areas where people sort of sell and buy and stay in the same area, this to me is a far more better way to work out whether someone is a potential vendor. Because often you do ask people, say, oh, by the way, you traveled far and are you buying or browsing? And are you researching buying or selling? And, you know, some people are guarded more than others, but this report here is identifying the buyer seller straight away. And we know how hard it is to get a listing in certain parts of Australia at the moment. I'd never, ever thought about it, Reece. This to me now has clearly become a listing generation tool. This is a lead generation tool.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we've been leaning into this heavily. And that was part of the thing. It was quite difficult for us to go through all those people through CoreLogic and really work out what happened. But the numbers were kind of better than we expected them to be.
And Amit, can I ask you, how does a before you bid report help you when working with a buyer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, Tom, has become very norm in our marketplace because I've been using, consistently for the past 3 years, three and a bit, in fact, where each and every buyers, they now feel that this is norm when they were to come to our open home. And then they'll be like, when we ask them a question of what you've inspected today, what's the best one you looked at today? And they will say, oh yeah, I've seen 25 Smith Street. And then when we talk about it, so have you done your due diligence and what's stopping you to buy there? And they would be like, hey, look, they haven't got the report there. Like, you guys are making it more transparent, and you providing the report where literally just click of a button. I just got to scan the QR code, which we have the QR code printed and laminated at the open home, and then we just leave it there. And they're like, I could just literally download the report now and look at it either today, tomorrow, and then literally move forward with the purchase. But with the other one, I really would have to order the report, wait for the inspector to reach out to me, and then send the inspector and wait for a few days to even have the report there. So I think it just become a much more norm in our marketplace, Tom.
Amit, if you just explain that to a vendor at a listing presentation, I actually think the vendor would be more inclined to go with you, because what you're saying is, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, I want to let you know, in this current marketplace, the turbulence and uncertainty with interest rates and the economy, we've got to get rid of every friction point there is. We've got to get rid of every resistance, every bit of doubt a buyer has. And what we're going to do is actually put them at ease by letting them know the property is satisfactory and the way we do it is this way. I think that's actually a part of your listing presentation to help you get a listing.
100%, because most of my sellers, Tom, they're first-time sellers. And when I literally ask them, so Tom, what would you prefer if you were to go out and inspect a property? Would you buy a property, there are 2 or 3 that you might have shortlisted. Would you buy a property where you get each and every information available just at one click of a button, or you would buy a property or from the agent where you literally do not have anything handy on you, and where you really have to go and order those reports and wait for it, and you might miss out once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, and then all that couple of $1,000 literally gone in the drain. So this is where vendors do understand, and obviously having to have a lot of case studies even with the vendors, they do understand. And as I said to you earlier, many scenarios where the buyer would literally download the report or purchase the report at the last minute, and will be ended up sort of being a successful bidder at the auction on Saturday, where it's absolutely no-brainer.
Okay. So Susan, please, in the background, in case people have got excited now and they thought to themselves, success leaves clues. How can so many of these people be using them? Why haven't we got a hold of this? If you can type in Susan in the chat box, beautiful. Thank you so much. And also on Facebook, this is where you go to if you are not part of Before You Bid. This is where you go. Reese, can I ask you, what do you see? And actually, this is to both of you, and Reese, did you want to show that other slide? Sorry.
Yeah, I will. I just want to jump in quickly, saying a myth in there, which has kind of resonated while you were chatting. And there'll be probably plenty of people listening here, Tom, who are in areas where reports aren't done up front, and they're like, oh, it wouldn't work in my market. And I love Amit for 2 reasons on that front, because auctions don't work in your market either, Amit, but somehow you do 120 of them a year. And Parramatta, I remember I went out and pitched to so many offices in Parramatta about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, and they all just laughed me out of their office. So like, as if a vendor's going to pay an extra couple $100 to get this done. And it was probably Amit and the Sayoon brothers, I would say, were the kind of the 2 people in their market who just went, no, we're going to do this and we're going to see how it goes. Yeah. And they've got the benefit of the data we've generated from that. So, yeah, I mean, thank you, Amit, for doing it. But if anyone is out there thinking it doesn't work in their market, I'm not sure in what market giving a good customer experience for buyers would be a bad idea.
Man,
So
I was one of them 8 years ago. Used to laugh and be like, no, I'm not going to use this. But hey, look, I would laugh now if someone's not using it.
yeah. I give this example of it just does work anywhere on that note. Like this is one in South Australia, a private treaty. It wasn't an auction property, another, 15, 16 downloads. The reason I brought this one up, Tom, it was on the market in February at the start of this year, went off the market for whatever reason, came back on 6 months later. They got a re-inspection from the same inspector. But after all that time, the ultimate successful buyer was the person who bought the report, the second person who downloaded it 6 months earlier. So that goes back to the power of what Amit was saying on your hot buyer list. If you've got this hot buyer list sitting right in your CRM, just make sure you keep in contact with them because they're still looking, and they've showed their hand. I'll just jump through here what Amit was talking about it all sitting in Agent Box. And we do this with Vault, Rex as well, Box and Dice. So if you see here, there's a little bit going on this slide, but if you just focus on the right-hand side, tell me where it says that reports available. This is our text messaging solution, which we can run over with any client if they want to chat, do it.
Where am I reading now? You said on the right.
Can you see on the right-hand side here, get the building inspected?
Yes.
So when they buy that report, we'll update, if you look at this little arrow down the bottom, we'll update the report taken field and that their interest level is now hot automatically in Agent Box. So what Amit was talking about was immediately after his open homes, he kind of gets this batting order automatically in his CRM, and you can use those buyer lists, those report taken lists for future listing presentations, for future properties you've got for sale. We also now update the email address in the CRM automatically as well if you don't have their email address. So it's about 5.5% of missing contacts will have their email addresses updated. So if you're using Active Pipe or your own EDMs or any kind of email marketing, you automatically get a 5.5% uplift for free off the back of using this product as well.
The other thing there, Reece, if I could jump in, which you guys have mentioned in there, like click to view the document. So you also even in that text message have the copy of the contract for the consumer to download, which obviously as an agent, it saves my time, where a buyer were to call me and say, hey, look, I inspected that property. Can you email me the copy of the contract?
Yeah, and so there, Tom, what Amit's saying is the contract taken field will also mark off and we'll update them to a warm lead. So where this works quite well is because it's, if you're at an open and you're chatting to an agent and they go, oh, do you want the contract? If Amit's looking at me in the eyes and I'm like, oh, yeah, I want the contract, of course. I might just say yes. And I actually did this once myself. I bought 6 months ago and I did it and I said yes. And I'm like, why the hell did I say yes to that? Like, I'm not actually interested in this property at all. But the agent was looking at me. He said, do you want the contract? I said yes. So the good thing about this is you can say, look, you're going to get a text message shortly after this open. You can get the contract, you can get the building and pest. And then it's like, okay, well, I've got a text. I'll actually answer if I am interested. I'm not going to say, yes, I want the contract if I don't want the contract. So because there's that call to action, automatically having that data in your CRM, going back to that example for Amit, it's like 20 people going through his open. Here's the 6 who took the contract. Here's the 3 who took the building and pest. Well, I know who I'm calling on a Saturday afternoon to try and get this thing sold.
Gold.
Yeah.
Gold. Can I ask Amit, and maybe stop, can I ask Amit, show me, when you're sitting at a listing presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking to the vendor about this. I'm just curious, how do you raise it to them? How do you bring it up and how do you influence the concept of doing it?
Yes, I actually have it, as I said before, it's sort of built in our marketing schedule there, Tom. And I just go like, okay, so this is the building and pest inspection report or the strata report that Mr. Vendor that we actually do order for you, where you pay the small amount. And every time, each and every buyer would want to buy this, they would also pay some amount as well. The benefit of this that you would have, Mr. Vendor, is, generally what the buyers would do is if they were to show the interest and if they were to inspect 3 or 4 or 5 properties, they just be like, hey, look, I've already missed out on a couple of them in the past. I don't want to download this report because I have to, or, pay the money because I have to pay $500-$600 for this report or $250-$300 for the strata report. While this one, yes, it's a small amount where the buyer pay $49 for the strata report, but actually shows the commitment from the buyer that they are genuine about buying this. And even though, yes, if they ended up being successful, or whoever purchased the report ended up buying the property, they still pay the most of the amount, where you're just going to be obviously paying the $69 for the strata report, or only $199 for the building and pest.
So I get the impression, Amit, you treat this like it's a signboard. It's part of the like
100%.
It's part of the campaign. It's not optional. This is what we've got to do to maximize your asset. This is how I'm going to go about it. Is there any resistance?
Not really, because at the end, when you add enough values, Tom, I mean, whenever I have 5, 6, 7 case studies, and generally a vendor would call us where they may have seen a couple of your sales, either on your street or near to your place, and hence why I'm there talking to you. And if I were to tell you that, Tom, that 25 Smith Street on your street, when we sold that, this is exactly the marketing schedule we used, and then the building and pest was done for that property as well, hence why I got a really strong result. And that's why I would suggest the same thing for you. I mean, literally, people love looking at the success stories and then follow the same to be able to achieve the same result for theirs.
And we get this, Tom, like almost day after day, certainly every weekend, an agent saying, "Oh, I had a late person turn up. They weren't going to bid. They got the report, and reserve was 800 or whatever it was, 1 million in a midst market, and I wouldn't have got there without it. But that person was the person that pushed us above reserve, or got us an extra 40 grand or 50 grand from my vendor, which is a great result. So definitely those late arrivals can help just push it to the level it needs to be.
I had one 2 weeks ago, in Tungabi, where the buyer literally turned up when I had the half an hour open home before the auction started. And I had the link there, the QR code there, and he just downloaded the report then and there, quickly browsed through, and he registered during the auction and ended up buying the property on that day.
There's more. Listen, I've got to tell you, it's not uncommon. On Sunday, I had an auction in Penrith, in Ladbroke. Listen to this, with Peter Diamantidis from Ray White St. Mary's, right? I think he's got to get onto this ASAP. If he's not on it, is he on it?
I think I'll have to double check. Okay. I feel familiar, but I don't know every one of our clients, thankfully.
So here's the story. Listen to this story. The address of the property was number 55 Ladbury Street, 12 o'clock auction. I had an 11 o'clock auction at George's Hall. I leave George's Hall at 11:45, which is another story, but I got to Penrith half an hour late. I've never been that late to this auction. Anyway, I'm surprised, because I'm thinking to myself, these agents are really going to get really upset here now, right? But I'm calling them, they're not responding back. I get there, anyway, that we start the auction. The property gets sold. Peter Diamantidis comes up to me and he goes, "Tom," goes, "it was a blessing in disguise. The buyers showed up at 12:25, 25 minutes after the auction." Right, that's the buyer.
And what do you like?
And he goes a little bit uneasy about the facts. Just seen the property, right, and just saw it there, bid on the property. But there is more and more of that happening, isn't there, Amit? More and more. It's not this. Not this 4 week, they're on the property from day one. There is random people coming in at the last days or on the day, right, buying properties.
Yeah, sometime. I mean, this guy here 2 weeks ago, Tom, he actually was bidding at one of the competitors' auction. He missed out there. He was driving by, looked at the pointer board. He said, "I saw the property online, but I thought, hey, look, it's not suitable for me and my family. But because I saw the pointer board saying auction, okay, I thought I would just stop by and have a look at it." And he said, "Hey, look, it might be okay. I could probably spend some money and do some renovations and make it to what we really want as our standard." And he ended up registering and buying it.
Listen, Reese, I've always been fascinated to ask, and I know I'm asking you to bring up some negatives here, but I can't work out why everyone does not use it. Like, to me, it's like it's the stakeholders are vendor, buyer, agent, right? I mean, sooner or later, the government's surely going to turn around and say, "This is win-win-win. We better do something about this," right?
Well,
agents are not. Why is more people not using it?
They did actually make it compulsory in the ACT, and it's worked really badly, because the reports are like $1,500 now because there's no market competition. So
Wow.
it actually works. New South Wales has got the best legislation in the space. And in terms of compulsory letting people know if there is a report done. But we're getting there in every state. So I think ultimately our solution will hopefully be everywhere.
What reasons?
If you look at the biggest reasons when we go into a new area where no one does it, and you say, hey, we want to do this, and it's like, oh, no, Tom, like, oh, no one does this in our market. It's a similar argument to no one does auctions in our market. It's like, well, why not? Oh, that's just historically what happens. Then you've got people who are scared of what the report's going to show. Like, oh, what if we find issues that weren't there anyway? Which, I mean, you'll know better than me how to handle. But I actually had a conference in Adelaide with Ray White Adelaide, and Dave Walker was there, and I pulled him on stage and I go, what do you say? What if there's problems with the report, the building and pest? What happens like with your vendor? And he started laughing. He's like, that's just the easiest discussion. I'll go and get some quotes to fix some things, and then I'll just, instead of being a 50 grand issue, which a buyer's found, it's a 5 grand issue, which we've sorted before the campaign started. And most of the time I tell them not to fix it. I just have the quote there to fix it, and then away we go. When a buyer sees the report, I'll send that off to them.
Question. I've just had a question come in from John Stilionos. Hey, John, how you going? He's a client of mine, All Properties Groups in Queensland, Chris Gilmore, very big office. They sell a lot of real estate, right? The question is, does the vendor have the opportunity to rectify any issues and the report is updated to reflect prior to being sent out?
100%. Yes.
That happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
so our inspectors will go out there, and we've got a marketplace of inspectors. So, but 100% that happens. Yeah, I mean, you can answer it better than me, but that happens. I wouldn't say regularly, but certainly when it needs to happen, like live termites. We got to fix this before we go to market. So let's fix it. Let's get the inspector back out there.
One of the team, John, one of the team from Before You Bid will call you. It's All Properties in Queensland, in Brisbane. John, you honestly, for the amount of property that you guys sell, you'll find that this is going to be an unfair advantage. I'm not quite sure. Maybe a lot of the other offices have got it in your area. But
I'd say, Tom, in that area of Queensland, I'd say one thing, we've got a lot of good clients in Queensland, but some of them will hand the reports out and do what Amit was mentioning not to do. So you hand it out, no data comes back. Make them download it from a third-party website. Firstly, you protect your ass from insurance risk. But secondly, the data you get back is just gold.
Now, finally, because I know a lot of people tune in on Facebook, they want to get some information from one of the greats, one of the absolute best real estate agents in Australia. Very proud. What I've got to tell you, Reece, I'm not quite sure if you were there watching the presentation that Amit did at ARIC.
I definitely was. I loved it.
Right. One of my absolute highlights was watching pretty much, you more or less got a standing ovation. I mean, some people stood up, but the claps were in there. And then your parents, you're in that front or second, third row by the stage. You had a lot of your close family, including your parents there. That gave me goosebumps because watching this guy go. So if you could just picture it, everyone, just picture it. He's been working at a restaurant. And you can go watch the videos I've done with Amit over the years on the gym. He had some very strong reasons why he got into real estate, financially driven, like we all are, to improve the quality of our life. He put the work in. He's gone into a marketplace where traditionally no other agent had ever written $2-3 million in fees, selling, units. They weren't doing auctions. They weren't doing before you bid. They didn't have EBUs. He's gone in. He's just taken the formula and he's executed it flawlessly. And I'd love you to share, Amit, if you were, starting again in real estate, like to the people that are tuning in that are inspired by what you've achieved, what are a couple of things that you'd say to them as lessons that you've picked up along the way in real estate? Obviously, lesson number one, everyone, yes, I know it's a little bit salesy. I'm telling you, Before You Bid is very good, but I've never.
Was this subtle?
Yeah, but you'll have to get me a t-shirt too. I will tell you, I never ever feel any shame or embarrassment when I'm actually making people aware of things that are good for them, that are also going to be good for the clients that they serve. In fact, I feel like I'm negligent if they're not aware of it or if they've misunderstood the concept, right? But I want to ask you, are there other things? John McConney's put his hand up. I'm not quite sure why, John, but if you put your hand up and you want to say something, put it in the chat box there. But can I just ask you, what are 2 or 3 lessons, Amit, that you'd love to share with people to have a successful life?
Absolutely.
Life, both on and off the court. Clean living guy, humble, not showing off, does his thing, goes home. 2 kids?
I've got 2 girls, yes, Tom.
2 girls like me. Okay.
I've got my second due next week, so
I saw that.
Nice.
I saw that on your post. That's happened quickly, hasn't it? They're only going to be 18 months apart.
Well, when you're 38 and your wife's talking about 4, you kind of need to just keep them going.
Wow, well, there's another coincidence. I had my second at 38 as well, and I had my first at 36, and I had both girls. But the only difference is we stopped at 2.
Yeah, well, this will be the second. We could still stop at 2, Tom. That's not.
All right. Can I ask you, Amit, top 2 business lessons that you'd love to share with other agents trying to grow?
Yeah, the first one for me, Tom, having the self-belief, either the self-belief of, can I really do the real estate or not? Can I really, have auction in my marketplace while no one's doing or not? Do I see the value in using before you bid or not? It's just very much like having a podcast of, hey guys, you got to do the photos and the floor plan. Like everyone thinks like, hey, look, now that's must. And I think this should be like that. So having the self-belief of, hey, look, I really can do it, and really giving the absolute best shot at it. That's one thing. And my father always have told me, hey, look, anything you do, just do the best. When I was washing the dishes as a kitchen hand, hey, look, I want to be the best kitchen hand on the planet. That was my goal, and doing with the passion, having a proud walking into the work, which is exactly the same thing. Being in real estate, I love, seeing my team helping the community out there with one of their biggest transactions, or, doing in their life, certainly, just taking pride in what I do. So, giving it a shot and give all your 100%. The second thing is, be coachable. There are many in the industry where we really look at people, even within our industry, where like knowing all versus want to learn it all, or knowing it all. I mean, be open to, no matter what stage you at. It's very much like, being a marathon runner or being a runner itself. Even if you're running a kilometer at 5 pace, there always is someone who's faster than you. Always remembering that, and always learning, how do I really get faster? With same thing in real estate, either you write 1 mil, 2 mil, 5 mil, you sell 50 properties, 100, and having the belief that, hey, look, I still need to learn a lot, and be coachable about it, and have a coach like yourself by your side who could really help you to take your career to the next level.
Okay. Amit, thank you so much. For those of you that have been inspired to take the next step, I want to let you know it's in the chat box. But I'll also
just go when you go to the website, just go to the contact us tab and just chuck in your details, and one of the team will reach.
So can I confirm it's beforeyoubid.com.au?
Yeah, with slash contact, but that's fine.
But if they go onto the website, it's up here again. Thank you, Susan. Up there again. And then what we're going to do is you go to the contact us section, and someone will contact you. And I believe before we go, Reece, the reports volumes are super high at the moment, huh?
Yeah, it's been great. Last year was a tough one, but it's been the biggest 3 months we've had by a very, very large margin. So good to see a lot of agents adopting it, and downloads are really good. So averaging 2.2 downloads a listing, which is really strong.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm letting you know that we're going to be here back next month, and I'm going to bring in someone from a different area. We're going to have David Walker on, who's going to talk about his approach to it. Yeah, come and join us again if you want to meet and sit as a spectator.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will.
All righty.
Thanks
Thank you
a lot.
so much.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Reece.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone, for
Thanks,
joining.
thanks. Pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.